Hey, we're talking already? All right,
Jesus Christ.
all right, well, all right. This is show's always an ad for frickin' Popeyes, but
The,
anyway.
the chief element in our director's technique is surprise.
Yeah. All right, so, this is 140.
140.
Real
I
quick,
wanna start up.
we were just talking about Tennessee Williams. You were about to say something, Lance, about Tennessee Williams.
Oh, all right. Tennessee Williams, it was a playwright from the 1950s that was considered one of America's top playwrights. And what I was about to say before the director turned the camera on was that a lot of the classic 1950s plays that were considered really innovative were just because people's lives were so sheltered that if you have a play where somebody gets raped, it's like, whoa, this is groundbreaking. And in one of Tennessee Williams' plays, a woman gets raped, and apparently the issue had never been touched on by anybody. There was another, I remember there was a classic film with Paul Newman called The Sweet Bird of Youth that was a real groundbreaking thing. And it's because he was a gigolo. And just the idea of a man being supported by women for sex was like, you know, if you were a sophisticated person back then, you were like really amazed by those kinds of films. And what I've noticed is that there are a whole slew of quote-unquote groundbreaking films from that period where it was maybe the
Death of a
wait,
salesman.
don't interrupt.
Sorry.
Where it was like the first person that is maybe gay, or people having affairs, or people getting addicted to alcohol.
Or The Life of a Hooker.
Yeah.
Butterfield 8.
Yeah.
Or just husbands and wives fight like, this was 60s, but Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Yeah. And it
Mental
was so
illness.
shocking to have husbands and wives really fighting. But my point that I was going to get to was this, that when you see these films now, they're not always that impressive at all, because the only reason they were impressive at the time is because they were groundbreaking. The nothing else about the films were all that impressive. It's like, whoa, she turns out to be a lesbian. Like, you know, everyone's in shock. But it turns out that without this sort of groundbreaking thing that we see every 2 minutes on TV now, there's not much to it. That's what I had to say.
Yeah, and like-
it's interesting because it means that what we thought were classics weren't really classics. They were just doing things that hadn't been done that you see on children's television now.
Catcher in the Rye. Not a play, but still. The first book about a disaffected teen who
Right.
thinks everybody's bullshit. You read it now and it's okay, but it's like you've seen that same character in the subsequent 60 years hundreds of times.
There's no other kind of teenager. I mean, you never see movies where teenagers are well-adjusted and respectful of their elders. You know, so it's there was a. I mean, it's kind of amazing how everything is so perverse.
Well, all right, speaking of perverse, like all shows now are completely okay with gay relationships. I know you're not, but I think it's perfectly fine.
I'm okay with gay relationships. I just don't believe in gay marriage.
Yeah, all right, so to not argue about that, because we've argued that.
No,
about
but don't
that.
accuse me of being homophobic.
Oh, all right, okay, all right, but let's. I just want to say that looking at relationships from the point of view of TV now and movies, where just everybody's with everybody and nobody gives a shit, it's crazy that thanks to biology, we enter into lifetime relationships, emotional, financial, child-rearing relationships, based almost solely on what sexual characteristics allow us to jizz, and girl jizz. It's like we're evolution's bitch, and it's all based on, all right, who can I get with that will give me reliable jizzing for the next few decades?
As opposed to,
I don't know, you and I are friends. We could set up a household, minus the jizzing, and we could set up an economic partnership. But it's like
that was one of the reasons I was against gay marriage, because why is it that two men living together couldn't say they were married? Why is it that they had to actually have anal intercourse to make it approved by the state?
Would the Odd Couple be the first gay marriage, technically?
No, I'm just saying. Do you understand my point?
Yeah, I mean, also, but I want to say,
why is it if I live with my brother and we share our finances and everything else,
you don't get the same breaks?
But we don't actually have sex. Why is it we can't be married?
Well, because he's your brother.
But having sex with a man is somehow nobler?
You can't. I don't know what the rules about incest. Is it illegal to have sex with your brother the way it would be with your sister?
No. I'm reversing it. Yeah. I'm saying that if I live with a man that is my best buddy, and we have a business together, and we do everything together, that's not a marriage. But if I have sex with that guy, all of a sudden I should be able to get married.
All right, so I think we agree that the whole basis for everything is, when you really look at it, kind of weird. All right, thing two is, you mentioned anal sex.
Okay, go ahead.
I've learned via modern TV that anal sex is, I've always suspected that, like, the same way as with heterosexual people.
Can you just get even, not parallel with Rick, just for the focus line?
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
you don't have to be close to him, but as long as you're parallel to each other. Because then...
I just want to say that it seems that anal sex turns out to,
yes.
I guess, regardless of whether it's a boy butt or a girl butt, do it right. Yeah. It's kind of a production, because you got to get cleaned out, otherwise it's a mess. Which is, that just makes it like, I don't know, more of a production. It seems like to be, it makes me suspect that not everybody's going crazy for the anal sex all the time. But well, I don't know. I'm no authority.
I think that's kind of a personal
all right, let's
issue,
move on.
Rick, and I'm not sure I want to comment on that.
Okay, all right, so we've been doing the show for about 3 years now.
I'm just saying that's none of your business, Rick. I'm just going to keep that issue to myself.
Okay. It's just like, I'm just compared to other things you can do sexually. It seems like it takes a lot of prep. Anyway, doing this for 3 years, and I was thinking about, doing a retrospective. What has happened over the 3 years that, personally, I've gotten sick and then had an operation and stuff, and my hair's gotten a lot more silvery, but in terms of, the world that we've been yelling about, I came up with two things that I would argue are pretty clear. One is that regardless of what you think of his policies, there was some expectation or hope that Trump would comport himself presidentially once he became president. And I think it's clear that he has not behaved in a traditionally presidential way. Policies aside, but I think we can agree that he's remained Trumpy. thing one. And thing two, we probably have more to argue about, but I think it's become clear over the past 3 years that global warming is a thing. It's much clearer now than it was when we started doing the show.
Why do you say that?
Well, when you look at the effects of global warming that are the most clear now, you have moderate temperature increases of 2 degrees here, 3 degrees here Fahrenheit. You have more flooding during times when you didn't have flooding, but that's not the deal. The deal is that added heat makes for more energetic events like hurricanes and fire, and like when you look at the fires in Australia where the wood's drier, when you get fire, well, you get more fires, and when you get them, they are more they're bigger, they're more tougher to fight, they're more conflagration-y.
You know what? This is just more proof that you're brainwashed, Rick. And I'll tell you why. I love looking at these. I love being able to bring these things up. Because it turns out that in 1974, the fires in Australia were worse than they were this year.
Okay.
So, now, I don't expect you to know that, but what I'm trying to say here is not whether there's global warming is worse or is irrelevant to my point right now. My point right now is, why didn't the media tell you that? Why were they keeping that from you? Because they knew. Well, the Australian media knew, and the media that covers this, they knew that the fires were worse in 1974. So why didn't they tell you that?
Well, they also didn't tell me that. They didn't tell me anything about. They said the fires are bad, and they are bad.
Yeah.
But they didn't put it in any kind of historical context.
Yes, they did. They wanted you to think that there was global warming, so you had to vote for Bernie Sanders.
Oh, speaking of,
They showed me a bunch of singed koalas and koalas up trees where there weren't really any trees left, just sticks.
Yeah.
And I mean, the fires are bad this year.
Yeah, I know.
Now, I didn't go back and do the research and to see, you've got.
That's going to be noisy on the sound, by the way. You know that.
He's the director. He
going-
or she is the director.
He's rattling French fries and things in there. If you're hearing any papers rattling, it's our director eating French fries.
All right, so, all right, I mean, I can, yeah, nobody said that the fires were worse than 7. I didn't see that anyplace.
Yeah, because...
However, but wait a second, you've got all of history to look back on, and there were big hurricanes in other years. I bet you if you went through and you looked at the instances and magnitudes of Australian fires, that there'd be, on average, an uptick. Now, I haven't seen that analysis, but we do have the statistics.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The statistics of warmest decades in history, warmest years in history, and we see some of the effects of that with specific, like with the, hurricanes are more powerful on average, or you have more, you have more 100-year floods, more 1,000-year floods. You have more of that stuff.
Well,
I mean, you do, like, the deal with, when they do the calculations for 100-year floods, they're based on the historical record and the variation from year to year, the standard deviation of number of inches of flooding.
yeah.
And so when you get a bunch of 100-year floods, in just a few years, that's statistical evidence in favor of this kind of shit.
I actually heard something else. I don't know about the floods, but I was listening to some meteorologists who say that they are banned from speaking anywhere because they are counter to global warming alarmism. And I could find this somewhere, but they had done a study of the studies. And it turns out that when people are recently, in order to check the temperature of the world, they have to put up thermometers. And it turns out that if you put a thermometer in the middle of a city, it registers hotter than if the thermometer is 60 miles out into the countryside. And what they said was that a lot of these thermometers hadn't changed. That the city
The city
has
came to the
expanded.
fucking,
Yeah.
okay.
And so what they're saying is not only are the thermometers that are giving us this basic research, the basic building blocks of our theories, they're not accurate. They're not, now you can disagree, you can say, well, these guys are lying, but they maintain that a lot of these thermometers are not that accurate. A lot of them haven't been changed. A lot of them haven't been really policed. And he said, these meteorologists in particular said that when it was found that there was some sort of discrepancy, if they had to err on the side of one or the other, they always said higher.
So, all right, so we could look it up and see, because
You'd have to hear the lecture that I heard.
know,
It was
but
like
you know,
a
the thing
3-hour
is-
lecture where they went
you know,
over
the-
all the thermometers out in the
Right.
country.
No, I get the
it was,
point.
It was rather dull. But
no, I get the point.
yeah.
And so, the thing about scientists is that two things. They're dumb. Scientists, you generally take the dumbest segment of
Well, we found that out.
the dumbest segment of the population tend to become scientists. And also they love to not be objective. They always are trying to fudge the evidence.
Well, they did find that that British university did fudge the evidence.
All right, so and then
And they
what
felt it
happened?
was for a good cause.
So yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, but it was the main university that was in charge of all the global warming statistics did fudge the evidence about 5 years ago.
Fake science?
No,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm just not buying it. And furthermore, I'll tell you something else. Whenever I hear,
So you don't-
see this is the deal.
no, hold on, because let's talk about.
Well, you had
city.
you
No,
had a
no, no,
chance
no, no,
to
no.
build
You
a
said a
point.
thing, and then I said, but hold on. The city temperatures. I remember there was a website you could go to, like 5 years ago, and then you could check. You could see. You could pick cities around the world and see how much their average temperature had gone up. Now, you could say that's subject to the same bias because a city, in 2014, is gonna. All right, so it's 52 degrees here right now, but a city in 2014 might have a
In the year
population
2014.
of 1.1 million, and that same city in 1961 might have had a population of 150,000. So that thermometer, even though it's been in the center of a city, maybe the city centers have gotten hotter as cities have expanded.
Which is true.
But still, you could go around the world. You could look at temperature increases, and then so we could probably look it up and see.
Oh, by the way, there are more polar bears now than there were. And furthermore, listen to this. Not only are there more polar bears than there were 50
Now, who's
years
saying
ago,
this?
the polar bears are not aren't dying out. What happens is earnest liberals like you go on the internet and they see these starving polar bears, and it turns out there's plenty of polar bears. They're just in different areas. One thing that they've been doing, they found out, is that a lot of these people are taking measurements of ice on the part of the North Pole that is getting smaller, and they're not going over to the ice on the other side that's getting larger.
Yeah, all this sounds like bullshit. A lot of it sounds like bullshit.
Speaking of,
Well, wait,
since
I had,
we're-
I had a point I was going to make.
Okay,
Unless, I did cut you off there. Did you have a point you wanted to make?
That you can go, and you used to be able to go, and I don't know if the website's still up. I couldn't
Right.
find it more recently, but you can go and you can look at specifically at city temperatures, which avoids the problem of country thermometer turning into city thermometer. And you can see that for many of the cities around the world, most of the cities around the world, because I checked a shitload of cities, the temperature within those cities has gone up a few degrees.
All right. So here's the situation. Duly noted. The situation is, I believe global warming is wildly exaggerated, if it's real at all. And what is happening is the Democrats are using this to scare people into voting for them. Now, just recently, AOC, the little communist that
Oh, good. This is going right where I want it to go.
is working for Bernie Sanders, said that we only have 12 years before we need to, before it'll be too late. And it turns out that they said that 12 years ago and 12 years before that. In other words, the Al Gore film that said we had so little time, that came out 20 years ago. And things haven't changed
Well, things
in the way he
things-
said it would.
Well,
But there's
how did he say things would change?
I didn't get to my point.
Okay, but
So there's two issues that I want to raise. The first is that the whole global warming issue is so that people will vote Democrat, because the Republicans aren't buying it. And whenever I hear that there are fires in Australia, it is incumbent on the news people to say, yes, but there were fires in Australia 50 years ago that were worse. It's incumbent of them to do that as good reporters, but they're not. They want you to vote Democrat. I'm not done. Now, the second point I was going to make is this. Supposing I'm the dumb guy that Rick is trying to influence, got to vote Democrat. Okay, now I vote Democrat. Well, the Democrats aren't interested in creating nuclear power, something that Rick supports along with Trump. So the problem is that even Rick has no solution. In other words, if Bernie Sanders was to get up there and say, all right, world's going to end, and you have to vote for me, and I'm going to create nuclear power so that we can keep having the modern technology that we live in today, but it will be safe and clean and not not raise the temperature. If he was to say that, I would say, well, there's some integrity there, okay? But there isn't. All the Democrats are doing is frightening people into voting for them, and the Democrats have no solution. What? Just go back to the way things were in 1890?
okay. So
Oh, wait, and I wasn't finished before you interrupted me. Number one, there's more polar bears now, but number two, and this is really easy. This is really easy. There are more trees today than there were 100 years ago in the United States.
yeah, that's not necessarily. That doesn't have a lot to do with climate change.
But trees create oxygen. They breathe our CO2, they create oxygen.
Yeah, but
So
they're not
actually,
sufficient to clean up the CO2.
They don't clean it up, but overall the planet's ecology is healthier.
No, well, that's a ridiculous indicator.
I was told that evil Republicans were burning the rainforests down, the lungs of the earth, And it turns out, oh no, they're not. There's
Wait, is
trees.
Brazil, do we have rainforests in America? Brazil has rainforests.
No, but it's balancing out. We're getting more trees in other areas.
Well, that's, okay, that's goofy.
It's not goofy.
All right,
I think it's damned important.
Well,
I heard for years, every time I opened my eyes, there was some goddamn Democrat saying that we were burning the lungs of the earth, and now I've come to find that there's more trees in America now than there were 100 years ago.
Yeah, because we practiced clear cutting probably 100 years ago. Probably forest management is in some ways better. In some ways, it's probably worse.
We have more trees.
Yeah, well,
And
It
by the
turns
way, the
out that
water is purer, the air is purer.
well, than 100 years
Yeah,
ago.
but no, the Great Lakes were
Yeah, they were a mess in the
were
60s.
filthy. Yeah, we cleaned them up.
Okay,
But,
so,
all right, go ahead.
all right, so let's get to the news with regard to this shit. Steven Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, got pissed off at Greta Thunberg, the high school climate activist, and says, "Where's your economics degree?" And this is part of a deal that somehow, and I understand kind of the arguments that conservatives say that that arguing that climate change is real. And let me develop this. I'll go fast. Is arguing for socialism, for putting a lid on shit, and stifling free enterprise and all this shit. And I would say that fucking climate change is one of the greatest capitalist opportunities of the 21st century. And I'll go to there was an ecological crisis in the cities 100 years ago, 120 years ago, and that crisis was huge amounts of horse shit every place, because the cities were filled with horses, and the horses would just shit in the street. There were just like mountains and rivers of horse shit every place. And I don't think it was socialism that led to the solution to the horse shit every place problem. Capitalism came in, gave us cars, they supplanted horses, and the horse shit problem cleared up. I looked up today how much climate change and addressing it is expected to cost. And by 2090, it's expected to cost, according to this one study, and I didn't look at a bunch of them, but it seemed reasonable to me, more than just in America, $200 billion a year to address the problem, which means trillions of dollars a year in the second half of the century around the world to deal with climate change. And what that says to me is people are going to fucking get rich off of fixing climate change. They're going to develop increasingly efficient alternative forms of energy. I'm going to talk about the oil companies in a sec after we get done arguing about this. But that's coming up with solutions to this shit is pure capitalism. And I think that alternative energies, non-fossil fuel based energy, will be the second. Non-fossil fuel based energy will be the second biggest, most lucrative industry of the 21st century. Okay.
All right. Right now, the U.S., for the first time in its history, and with the full support and encouragement of Trump.
And before him, Obama.
No, Obama tried. The reason that we are an oil exporter, which is what I was going to say before Rick interrupted me, for the first time in the past, 70 years, America is an oil exporter. So we don't need the Middle East. We don't need it. We've got our own oil. In fact, we've got so much, we are now competing with Russia and Iran and Saudi Arabia, Venezuela. And what Obama tried to do was to put up every barrier he could against fracking. Because Obama was, as I believe Obama was the worst thing that ever happened to the U.S., and among the things he did was try to stop fracking. Now,
It was very bad at stopping, because
Well,
we became
he's
energy
stopped-
independent in 2014
he's
when
stopped-
Obama was president.
Well, then, in spite of him, because he was trying to stop it. And I can show you, that'll be easy to prove, that he was very much against fracking. Do you deny that?
Yeah, because
You
fracking,
think Obama supported fracking?
to some extent, yeah. Fracking
No,
got
I can
huge.
just look this up on the internet, Rick. That Obama, that any legislation, any attempt to thwart fracking was with the full support of Obama.
Do you want a break? We've been going for a while and look it up. Because fracking.
This is just incomprehensible.
No,
to me.
fracking
No,
got
I'll look
huge.
it up. I'll look it up.
All right,
Obama
let's shut it down
fracking.
for a second.
Yeah.
Observations about it, but fracking got huge under Obama.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
But the camera's not rolling, so save your invective
All
for the
right.
fucking camera.
I'm very angry.
I'm actually rolling right now.
Okay, really? Okay.
Can you turn that off?
Okay. Well, I thought you were rolling.
All right. This is from The Hill, which is a fairly neutral reporting agency. The date is 12/28/2017. The Trump administration will take its final step to repeal the Obama administration's 2015 rule setting standards for hydraulic fracturing on federal land. The repeal is part of a broad Trump administration effort to repeal environmental rules it finds unnecessary and to promote domestic production of fossil fuels and other energy sources. This final rule is needed to prevent the unnecessarily burdensome and unjustified administrative requirements and compliance costs of the 2015 rule from encumbering oil and gas development on federal and Indian lands.
So wait, so Obama does one thing, he tries to limit fracking on public lands. And,
Yes.
and so you take one thing Obama does. Now look up the rate, because fracking and natural gas in general, which is a product of, they figured out how to inject fluid into the earth.
Okay.
And they also figured out how to make a drill turn sideways and drill horizontal. These were two technological innovations that happened towards the end of, around 2008. Chesapeake becomes a big company, which was the big fracking company in 2008. And then it gets going into, and then throughout the Obama administration, it gets bigger and bigger. And then
Obama tried to stop it.
No, here's what happens. It was so successful that so many people started fracking that the price of natural gas plummeted, and Chesapeake went from, $90 a share down to less than, I forget. I have stock in it, and I got killed. Because everybody started doing it, and then the price of natural gas went way down because we have a shitload of natural gas, and it was the technology that, as it rolled out, and became ubiquitous across America, that led to our energy independence.
Rick, you're not thinking logically. You've given the people listening a bunch of facts.
Facts. Sorry.
But 2 minutes ago, we had to shut the camera down because you told me that Obama was supportive of fracking. And the only thing
And you
we
found an
have-
article you said where he wasn't so supportive of
But
fracking
no,
on
no.
federal land.
Yeah, well, Rick, this is his reaction to fracking. This is what he did. So you're wrong.
No, because he didn't like it in national parks or whatever, federal land. But he might
The
have said
country
that.
has massive federal lands. You'd be amazed at how much land in the United States is federal land.
Okay, all right, that's fine, I'll give you that.
So I have proven that in 2015, Obama restricted fracking, which is the opposite of what you said 5 minutes ago.
All right, so
'Cause you could not accept it.
let me look up one thing. No, look, because he was, meanwhile.
You
he
were
was
wrong.
No, I wasn't. Under Obama, so much fucking
No,
fracking
it wasn't
happened.
but it wasn't his decision. Rick, the thing he did was try to restrict it. Obama restricted fracking. That's what it says.
Meanwhile, fracking,
Yeah, I
shut
know,
it down
in
for a second.
spite
I want
of
to
him.
look.
In spite of him. In spite of him.
I want to look up one thing. You found that he didn't want it on federal, or he wanted restrictions of it on federal land. So, setting standards for hydraulic fracking on federal land.
Okay,
So he had standards.
good.
And we'll talk about that in a sec. But you can shut it down for a second.
Shut it
I'll look
down,
up
okay.
one thing. All right, so this is an article from a website called AmericansAgainstFracking.org. And it's about those regulations that Obama came out with. According to this article, or according to Friends of the Earth, this fracking rule is merely a continuation of Obama's harmful, all of the above energy policy that emphasizes natural gas development over protection of public health and the environment. And then the headline of this article is Obama administration releases toothless fracking rules, give away to oil and gas industry. So some people think that, he was just.
Well, I guess the Friends of the Earth were not impressed with Obama's zeal.
Yeah, and then if you look, here's U.S. natural gas production. Natural gas was really what made us energy independent.
Okay.
And from 1940 to, 2018. And if you look here, starting in right around 2007, the graph is, I'll turn it around in a second, it's kind of flat from 1970, or even it's flat from 1970 to 2007. Then starting in 2007, it goes fucking crazy. And
that was the time that Obama was president.
it nearly doubles.
Wow.
From 2007 to 2018, it doubles. Here, you can look at it.
Wow. Boy, do I have egg on my face.
Well, so he wanted to regulate
Can you
some form.
imagine how... Rick, it's really... Are you done, by the way?
Well, you said that Obama was shutting down the oil. Obama was not against developing American energy.
Uh-huh.
He wasn't. He
Okay.
did. He did. All right.
Hold on,
All
hold on.
right, you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Rick, you're the second smartest man in the world, okay? I'm probably only 14th,
Okay.
but that means you're much smarter than me. So, do you understand that because we got more production under Obama, it was not because of Obama,
Yeah, but it also Obama
it was in spite of Obama. Okay? The only thing that Obama did in response to fracking was to create the 2015 law that would have severely curtailed fracking.
Yeah, can you tell me by how much it would have curtailed fracking?
I don't know the number, Rick.
Maybe you should, because
No, maybe I don't need to.
No, 'cause here's what- because fracking-
it was vitally important, according to the oil industry, and Trump repealed it. So that means Trump did more for fracking than Obama did. Now, this is an intelligence test. You're good at that. You have fracking is going up. You have one president that passes a law that severely would curtail it. And you have
you don't know anything about the law. You don't know
and
how.
you have another president that abolishes that law.
You don't
So
know-
which president was more supportive of fracking? The one that tried to curtail it, or the one that ended the law that curtailed it?
Now, I just read this whole fucking book on the history of the oil industry, written by somebody you respect a lot, Rachel Maddow. And about half of the book covers fracking and natural gas. Fracking is a term for just so you inject fluid into deep, a couple of miles, 2 miles into the earth, and you break up, you create fissures in the rocks, which releases natural gas. And there's responsible fracking, and then there's fracking that, for instance, all right, in Oklahoma has been an especially friendly state for fracking. And Oklahoma went from very few earthquakes. When you think of Oklahoma, you don't think of it as earthquake central. Oklahoma, in a period of roughly 4 years, went from very few earthquakes to 6 times as many 3.0 and above earthquakes than the entire state of California. It went, the number of earthquakes multiplied 100-fold. And this was shown to be associated with where fracking was going on. And there are ways to limit that. There's a thing called the basement. The basement is the very, very deep bedrock, below which you won't find any natural gas. But if you drill too deep and you shoot your fluid into the basement, you lubricate the faults and you start having earthquakes. So the deal is that eventually Oklahoma, after this huge wave of earthquakes, was like, all right, they went to the oil company they started passing legislation saying, you have to show us that you're not just willy-nilly shooting shit into the basement where it doesn't do any good in retrieving gas and it does a lot of bad in lubricating earthquake faults. So that's regulation on fracking. And so they did that, and the number of earthquakes declined again. So when somebody wants regulation in this industry, now let me tell a personal story. My family has owned stock in oil companies for years, and I gladly held on to them because I thought, oil will eventually be supplanted to some extent, by alternate forms of energy. But we'll always need oil, and also, according to the advertising done by Exxon and other energy companies, they're saying that they're developing alternatives to oil. This book by Rachel Maddow offers richly documented examples of the oil industry not doing any of that. They make so much money just with oil and are sufficiently short-sighted that they're just drilling oil sloppily and wherever they can get away with it. And so now I got to think about getting rid of or shaving back our stocks in oil companies, because they're gonna go the way of coal and of buggy whips. They're gonna be supplanted. They're not doing enough research to keep ahead. As long as they can keep using old technology, and making money off of it, they won't develop new technology. Now, fracking came along and took them by surprise, and they took a while. Now they've embraced it. But the deal is that the oil companies are not particularly proactive, and they will continue to try to get away with shit wherever they can. And they are brutally, ruthlessly profit-driven. And so just because you want to regulate oil companies doesn't mean you want to shut them down. You just want them to do their shit responsibly.
All right. Number one, I don't trust anything Rachel Maddow says because she convinced Rick that Trump colluded with Russia. And we can't get that out of his head. Now, Rick just went on for a very long period of time because he wanted to explain that fracking needed to be regulated. But he refused to answer my question. So don't you interrupt me. My problem with what Rick does in arguing is that he can't be honest. So what you say is, Lance, Trump did more for fracking. Obama did less for fracking. In fact, Obama did things to restrict fracking, but he had a good reason. But Rick can't do that. When I say to Rick, which president promoted fracking more, Rick can't just say Trump did. So all that stuff about Rachel Maddow, who is a damn liar, and her opinions about fracking, that was all completely irrelevant. See, when you're a logical person, when you're trying to get at the truth, you admit when the other person is right. And then you go on. You say Trump did more, but fracking is bad and needs to be regulated. Can you do that, Rick?
Irresponsible fracking is bad, but not all fracking is bad. If you do it right.
Which president promoted fracking more, Trump or Obama?
Depends on what you mean by promoted. If you're going to say here's what Trump removed more restrictions on fracking than Obama did.
Okay, and that means that there was more fracking allowed by Trump. So Trump allowed fracking to flourish more. Let's make it easy for you. Let's just say that fracking is cancer.
Fracking does cause cancer.
Let's say it is cancer.
Okay.
Trump removed the restrictions for cancer. Obama tried to restrict cancer.
Okay.
So which president did more for cancer? Trump or Obama?
I would argue.
No, don't argue.
I get to fucking argue. The whole show is about fucking arguing. If you let now, the Chesapeake guy, the guy who really got fracking going, that guy.
Long discussion.
No, fucking that guy.
On and on. He's going to tell us the whole history of all the.
No, all I'm going to tell you is that a few years ago, that guy, after years of running this company into the ground, he drove his car into a highway abutment at 80 miles an hour and killed himself.
Well, he was lucky after talking with you. That's kind of how I feel.
So, I would
wish
argue.
I could do that right
I would
now.
argue.
Committed suicide?
Yeah, he killed himself.
Was he arguing with you before he did it?
I would argue that putting some limit, making fracking responsible, so it's cleaner and kills fewer and pollutes fewer aquifers. Making oil companies behave responsibly does more for fracking than letting oil companies just do the sloppy shit they were doing.
Yeah, but you'd be lying. You could make that argument, but you'd be a damn liar.
I would be, because
you can't just admit the truth. You can't say
that Trump is this friend of fracking.
Yes.
Okay, he's a friend of fracking.
He did more to spread fracking than Obama did. The only thing Obama did was restrict fracking.
No bullshit. Obama was.
No, it's not bullshit. It's demonstrably true. Obama restricted fracking.
He put some restrictions on fracking in
he
some areas.
It. Yeah, he did.
But under Obama,
and Trump lifted those restrictions. You've got to be honest. You have to face the facts.
No, because you're doing a fucking spurious argument.
You can't have it both ways, Rick.
I fucking
You can't say somebody restricted fracking, but then expanded fracking. You can't say both at the same time.
Fracking went crazy under Obama.
In spite of him.
No,
in spite of him.
no. Obama wasn't
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to.
you-
No,
you
but
know what?
it's
Because
bullshit when you
it's-
say it's fucking bullshit when you say that Obama wanted to shut down all fracking. Are you saying that?
No.
Okay.
No, actually, what happened was this: the 2015 law was halted in court, and that's why fracking continued. The court stopped it, and then when Trump took over, he overturned the law.
But what did the law do exactly?
It
Do
would
you
have
know?
restricted fracking on federal lands.
Restricted it in what way?
It would have created. I can
Do you
look it up.
Look
for
it
you.
up because I bet you it just.
No,
but it doesn't
it-
say you
but
can't. It doesn't say you can't frack on federal land.
Okay.
It just,
I
it's-
can just tell you without looking it up. It made it so expensive that it wasn't worth it.
How do you know that?
Because that's what it said in the article.
I just read an article that said that the law was toothless and was a handout to oil and gas companies.
Well, apparently, the oil and gas companies were very upset about it, and they went to court to try to stop it. So it was so toothless that they had to go to court and stop it. And it was stopped. It never went into effect because the court took the side of the oil companies. And then Trump finally overturned it. So Obama did not promote fracking.
We should just.
He promoted
Let's look up
restrictions
one more
of
thing.
fracking.
Let's just look up.
No,
one
why
more
don't we change the subject? Because you look like a guy that just can't admit the truth.
No,
Look,
no, you're calling me a-
I'll make your argument for you. Okay, I'm Rick. Okay, I am a zombie. I just read a book. Okay, now Obama wanted fracking to be good, so he tried to stop it by regulating it. Now then Trump came in, and he's a bad man. And he removed the restrictions so the oil companies could do more fracking. So Trump made more fracking, but it was bad. Okay?
Was that Schiff? Were you being Adam Schiff there?
Putting regulations on something doesn't shut it down.
No, it doesn't. But it doesn't promote it either. It restricts it. That's
All right,
why it's
so-
like the word restriction means to restrict something.
All right, so what wasn't restricted was the flow of oil out of the BP offshore well that they couldn't cap. What was the Deepwater Horizon, right? All right. That
Off
thing
of
pumped
Louisiana.
out tens of, So after that, I assume, now I don't know for sure, I don't remember, I assume that the government tried to impose more restrictions. I know they imposed at least temporary restrictions on new drilling in certain areas. But that doesn't mean they shut down all offshore drilling. And,
So they did.
all right,
And by the way,
by requiring,
look, even if these restrictions were vitally important, even if it's a good thing, even if God came down and said, Obama, you are a saintly man because you imposed restrictions on fracking, I would still be right. And you would still be wrong because Obama restricted fracking and Trump promoted it.
I would bet that Obama, and I know for sure, Obama still promoted fracking.
No, he
Obama-
didn't.
Yeah, he did.
He
did.
He did not do anything. When he finally roused himself to do something, it was to impose restrictions.
His
signature achievement on fracking was the 2015 law.
That's the first thing you found, but you don't know his
That's
whole.
the only thing he did. They didn't know what to do about
How do you
fracking.
know that?
Because I read the article.
What does the article say?
The article said that they deliberated about it. The Obama administration was going back and forth. He made a speech in 2013 where he said he was in favor of it, but they didn't know quite what to do. And then finally, by 2015, they'd come up with a plan,
So Obama-
and it turned out to restrict fracking.
On federal lands, but you don't know what the restrictions were. All you know is
I
you
do
read it
know.
or
I do know. The restrictions were these, okay? Number one, there were a lot of habitats that they were afraid they would damage because they wanted to keep the ecology free of man. There were other restrictions that would have imposed a tremendous amount of research and all kinds of technological
Where are you
issues.
getting this?
No.
Where are you getting this?
It's in the article, but would you please not interrupt me? You asked me a question. One, when there are too many regulations on doing it right, doing it clean, doing it perfectly, doing it to the approval of the environmentalists, the oil companies were saying, we can't do this. We can't go along with this because it's too complicated and expensive. That's why it stopped it in the federal lands. They could frack so long as they were willing to spend a fortune pleasing the environmentalists.
Does that article say that
Yes.
fracking on federal lands was stopped? No, it doesn't say that.
They attempted to stop it. The oil companies went to court in 2015. A judge said, we're going to put a hold on this law. Then Trump overturned it, and we have lost our entire 75 people audience. That's it. No one wants to hear your shit anymore. We need to change subjects.
Okay, but the amount of fracking, the amount of natural gas in America, produced in America every year doubled between 2007 and 2018.
In spite of Obama. With nothing to do with Obama. It had nothing to do with Obama. He had nothing to do with it.
He passed one law that put some restrictions on it.
Then why are you giving him credit for the oil bust, for the boom? Why are you giving him credit for that, Rick? Are you insane? Is that the problem? Do you think that Obama was fracking all over the country and that's why we're having this big boom? Was Obama the god of oil companies? And you're saying, oh, Saint Obama, he came in, he invented fracking, and now fracking and the oil now we're energy developers, and it's all because of Saint Obama. He did it. It was his idea, right, Rick? Is that what you're trying to convince me?
We became energy independent under Obama.
Not because of him. I'm leaving. Wait, I'll tell you what. This is not his fault. He's a nice person.
You said
he's just a little stubborn.
In 2013, you said he gave a speech that was pro-fracking.
Yes, he gave a speech. That's right. He did. He gave a speech.
So
he said yes. Yep, gave a speech. Yeah, he did.
So the natural gas industry has been steadily expanding.
Okay. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
All right, so what's the next thing?
Okay, well, kind of related to it is somebody that really doesn't know anything about fracking, but yet got paid millions of dollars to do it was Hunter Biden in Ukraine. Now
What is this fucking shit?
Okay, so because the impeachments are coming up, the impeachment hearings are coming up.
Yeah, they're not about fucking Hunter Biden. They're about what Trump did with the government of Ukraine.
So you didn't. Okay.
It's bullshit to start it off with Hunter Biden.
So you think?
And really, do you think Hunter Biden had zero history with any kind of financial stuff?
Lance, I'm going to. That's Lance's. I'm
not going to fucking start off with. If you're going to start off with impeachment, you don't fucking start it with Hunter Biden unless you're fucking Hannity, you dick.
Well, that's the reason that he got impeached was because they was targeting.
He was looking for dirt on the Biden.
Okay, so.
But it's what Trump did. It's not what fucking Hunter Biden did.
Okay, I'm just posing the question. Lance, is that what you agree? Do you agree with that?
Rick, do you want to live in a world where Biden can get bribed? Is that what you want? Do you want the president?
He didn't get fucking bribed.
He just got $3 million from Burisma.
Hunter Biden got paid
$3 million by Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company. Was it an energy company? Now,
Person.
why did he get that money, Rick? You admitted on a previous show that you believed it was a sweetheart deal, that he got it because he was the vice president's son. You admitted that already. Do we
Yeah.
have to get you to admit
No,
it
but
again? Do you want to live in a country where if you
this is a stupid. You're fucking this up, motherfucker.
I would've
You
brought it
no,
up-
no,
I
no,
would've
fucking
brought
no.
it up
But
myself.
we're in the middle of the impeachment
right?
trial in the Senate of Donald Trump for what Trump did
Yeah.
with regard to the government of Ukraine. Just a few hours ago,
Yes.
an excerpt from John Bolton's book proposal was leaked in which Bolton says Trump told him point blank that he was keeping the federally mandated aid or the congressionally mandated aid to Ukraine. He was holding it until Ukraine agreed to investigate Joe Biden for political purposes. Now,
May I respond?
yeah.
All right.
But so no wait, one more thing. So it's Fox News that does the shit that tries to shift the focus to Hunter Biden.
All right. So, as a point of interest, this is really kind of irrelevant, but I actually heard about this Bolton book a few hours ago, and I combed the internet, and I couldn't find the excerpt from the book.
I don't think the excerpt's available.
Right. So I don't believe it yet.
Okay, that's fine. We can wait till next week.
Right.
That's fine.
And if it turns out that Bolton does say that, well, Giuliani says he's lying. So it's his word against the president. Now, here's my problem, Rick. I know that you love the Democrats, but do you want anybody to ask about what Biden was doing over there? Why is it
No,
that
wait, which Biden? You got two Biden.
okay. It turns out that every time Biden has been in charge of foreign policy with a different company, with a different country, whether it's
Which
China,
Biden? Hunter Biden.
Joe Biden, when he was a senator, got his brother wealthy in a similar deal. Okay? There are 5 Bidens. His sons and I believe his brothers have all gotten wealthy. They've all become millionaires at the same time that Joe Biden was in charge of our policy with a certain country.
When we break, you can show me that
Yeah,
deal.
well-
Because that has to be written down someplace,
It is.
right?
it
Okay,
is, yeah.
so you'll
Yeah.
show it to me when we break.
The book is by a man named Schweiker, who also wrote Clinton Cash.
No, that guy is all right,
But he turned out to be right. He does say
no, he's also the uranium one guy. He came up with uranium one, which is horseshit, which we've argued about endlessly, and I've so anyway.
Okay, Rick.